This is the Main Street Preps High School Football Preview Show, presented by the Tennessee Highway Safety Office. Fans don't let fans drive drunk.
Welcome into the second year of the Main Street Preps High School Football Preview Show. I'm Chris Yao. We are proudly presented to you by the Tennessee Highway Safety Office. Remember, fans don't let fans drive drunk. We've got a big slate of games here in week one, and we've got folks from all around Middle Tennessee to tell you about them. We'll start up in Clarksville, where brand new reporter Calvin White will tell you about what's going on in Montgomery County and in Houston.
Hello everyone, this is Calvin White, sports editor with Main Street Clarksville, just here to give you a quick preview of this week's Montgomery County area football games. We're going to start with Clarksville. The week after the Wildcats won 35-3 over Montgomery Central, they are heading to Springfield this week. Springfield will be without quarterback Kason Woodson, who was ejected in Springfield's win last week. Rossview hosts Logan County. Rossview is coming off a 22-14 win over Wilson Central. Wilson Central scored 14 unanswered points in the first half against Rossview. Rossview outscored the Wildcats 22-0 in the second half to walk out of there with a 22-14 win. They will host Logan County. Kirkwood is heading to Montgomery Central. Kirkwood coming off a 41-6 win over Sycamore. Really complete performance on offense. Miles Redding, the quarterback, had a big game. Josiah Claybrooks ran for 180 yards. West Creek hosting Green Hill. West Creek coming off a Week 1 win over Laverne. Green Hill coming off a Week 1 win over Northeast. Northeast hosts Hendersonville. Northeast coming off, like I just said, that loss to Green Hill. Northwest will host Wilson Central. Wilson Central, like I mentioned before, coming off that second half letdown against Rossview, enters 0-1. Northwest looking to build on their big win from last week against Fort Campbell. Kenwood travels to East Nashville Magnet. Kenwood coming off a loss to Franklin Road Academy last week. And Clarksville Academy will host Ezel Harding. Clarksville Academy and Ezel Harding both coming off big losses in Week 1, both looking to turn around and get their first win in Week 2. I'm Calvin White, sports editor with Main Street Clarksville. I'll talk to you again.
Thanks, Calvin. Let's go up to Sumner County now, where Blaine Kellar is standing by with a report.
The Sumner County football season trudges on with 2 rivalry games Friday night and 7 total in the area. I'm sports editor Blaine Kellar, and here's a look into the Week 2 Sumner County football schedule. The big ones are the Mayor's Cup between Gallatin and Station Camp, the Bishop's Cup between JP2 and Father Ryan, and not to mention Liberty Creek and White House playing once again. That was a fun game last year and seems to be brewing into another in-county type rivalry. Gallatin and Station Camp always play a fun one, and all 3 of these games will be good ones as part of our coverage for Main Street Preps. Last year, first-year coach Michael Strout picked up his first win as a member of the Green Wave in the Mayor's Cup. It's a 42-39 win that ended with a last-second missed field goal by Station Camp, which would have sent it to overtime. It's been a pretty wacky series here of late, but Gallatin looking to defend its trophy on Friday at Calvin Short Field. JP2, meanwhile, looks for vengeance after falling 42-7 at home in the Bishop's Cup last season. JoJo Crump and Charlie Becker made big plays for the Fighting Irish a year ago, but both of those players are gone, and JP2 looks like a much improved team from a year ago with a lot more talent and experience. So I look for the Knights to head into South Nashville and at least make it closer than what it was a year ago. They've had a lot of success in this all-time series. So in my pick'em column, I do have them pulling out the win there. So that'll be a fun one to watch. Like I mentioned, Liberty Creek and White House in Gallatin on Friday night. Be sure to catch David Wilson and Maggie Pinson's coverage of that one. Game went into the fourth quarter, a pretty tight ball game last year. So it should be a good one to follow along on Friday night and reading the coverage Saturday morning. Our other games, Hendersonville looks to move to 2-0 when traveling to Northeast Friday night. Beach hosts Collierville, putting its perfect record on the line. Westmoreland looks to pick up its first win against Clay County, and Portland hosts Greenbrier. That's a look into the Week 2 Sumner County football schedule. Back to you guys.
Great job as always, Blaine. Hey, let's move over to David Wilson. He's in Robertson County telling you about what's going on in his area.
Hey everybody, this is David Wilson, sports reporter for the Robertson County Connection, here to give you a quick preview of all the Week 2 games across the Robertson County area. Last week, area teams went 4-3 in the first week of play. They will look to continue that trend this week as we have rivalry matchups and local area games all abound across the mid-state. On Friday night, White House will travel to face Liberty Creek as the Blue Devils look to bounce back after a disappointing loss last week against Portland. The Blue Devils jumped out to a 14-0 lead but surrendered that as Portland came all the way back to win 21-20. The Blue Devils are going to face a similar team who had a disappointing week last week in Liberty Creek. They lost to East Robertson 30-0 on the road. So that will be a matchup of two teams looking to get their first win of the year. Looking forward to that one. I will be there on Friday night in Sumner County. Springfield, after a convincing 34-0 win over Greenbrier last week, will host Clarksville on Friday night in the battle for the Bridge Trophy. Clarksville had a 31-point win over Montgomery Central last week and beat the Yellow Jackets very handily last year in the second week of the year. So Springfield looking to get some revenge on Clarksville. The Yellow Jackets will be without their starting quarterback, Kason Woodson, who was ejected last week in the first half against Greenbrier. So Bryce Spaldwin will get his first career start for the Yellow Jackets and head coach Dustin Wilson as they look to defeat Isaac Shelby's Wildcats. Greenbrier will go on the road after last week's disappointing loss to Springfield. They will face Portland, who, as I mentioned just a few moments ago, had a big-time come-from-behind win over White House. Greenbrier is still looking for their first points of the year as they were shut out last week against Springfield. They will face a Portland team that they lost to last year at home, so they will be looking for some revenge as they go on the road and face their rival Portland up in Sumner County. East Robertson, after their 30-0 win over Liberty Creek, will travel to face Houston County this week, who also won their Week 1 matchup. The real question is, will the Indians have the luxury of handing the football off to Mr. Football winner Isaiah Groves? He left last week on the first drive of the game with a knee injury when they faced Liberty Creek. He did not return to the game and was scheduled to get an MRI on that knee earlier this week, so it is unknown whether he will be able to play for Chase Brooks and the Indians this week as they travel to Aaron, Tennessee. White House Heritage won last week by 16 points over Harpeth on the road. They would continue their travels towards West Tennessee as they face East Hickman on Friday night. East Hickman had a big win last week over Fairview by 41-35. So a good matchup right there on the road as White House Heritage looks to go out to jumping out to a 2-0 start for their second time in the last 2 years. Joe Burns returns home to Cedar Hill as they host Ballard Memorial, Kentucky this week. The Red Devils had a disappointing loss last week out in West Tennessee at McEwen. They were up by 2 scores with 11:33 left in that ball game, but the Raiders of McEwen came storming back with 2 late touchdowns to steal a 27-26 home win over Joe Burns. Joe Burns is hosting Ballard Memorial, Kentucky, who was the only win on their schedule last year. Joe Burns did not win a game against in-state competition, so Joe Burns looking to bounce back this week in their first home game of the year. And then lastly, Innovation Academy, who played their first T-Play game last week against Kip Collegiate. They will host Nashville Christian this weekend and 5-star quarterback Jared Curtis. The Nashville Christian beat Davidson last week, where Curtis threw 2 touchdown passes. The Georgia commit passed for over 297 yards. The Sentinels with their second TLSI game at Boys Smith Field. Looking forward to talking to you guys next week.
Thanks for that report. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, more from around Middle Tennessee on the Main Street Preps High School Football Preview Show presented by the Tennessee Highway Safety Office.
He shoots, and he scores!
At Delta Dental of Tennessee, we know our success begins and ends with providing superior quality service, and that includes serving those who need it most. This year, we're celebrating 25 years of giving back to the community we call home. Delta Dental, along with our Smile 180 Foundation, supports Tennessee's dental colleges and oral health education, children's hospitals, free and reduced cost dental clinics, and other like-minded charities. Here's to the next 25 plus years of ensuring healthy smiles.
Moving along the north end of the coverage area, we'll go over to Wilson County where Tommy Bryan has a report.
Hello everybody, Tommy Bryan, sports editor of the Wilson Post in Lebanon, and here's a look at high school football action that's upcoming on Friday, August the 30th. The number one team in Class 4A, the Upperman Bees, will be in Wilson County as they take on the Lebanon Blue Devils Friday at Clifton Tribble Field, Danny Watkins Stadium. Kickoff is 7 o'clock. Two longtime rivals go at it at Robinson Stadium in Watertown as the Tigers go at it. The Gordonsville Tigers will play at the Watertown Purple Tigers. Again, kickoff at 7 o'clock. Mount Juliet, fresh off an easy win over Cane Ridge, travels into Nashville to take on Hunters Lane High School. That game will be played at Warrior Stadium, 7 o'clock kick. Two more rivals go at it on Friday. This game will be at 7:30 as Donaldson Christian Academy visits Friendship Christian. That game will be played at Pirtle Field. Green Hill makes the trip to Montgomery County to take on West Creek High School, and Wilson Central will travel into Montgomery County to play at Clarksville Northwest. Both those games start at 7 o'clock. And our final game of the evening, hapless Lookout Valley plays at Mount Juliet Christian Academy. That game at Ed Suey Field on the campus of Mount Juliet Christian Academy. Kickoff is set for 7 o'clock. Keep up with all the local sports at wilsonpost.com and at Main Street Preps. I'm Tommy Bryan, and I will talk to you later.
In Murray County, it's Maurice Patton. He's going to tell you a little bit about what's going on in there and in southern Williamson counties.
Week 2 of the high school football season down here in Murray County starts with a big rivalry game as Spring Hill travels out to Mount Pleasant. Second time in 2 weeks for Spring Hill to go out there, as they also played in the Murray County Jamboree, but this one will count. And the Tigers coming off a big 37-6 win at home last week against Wayne County, where they kind of big played the Wildcats to death. Meanwhile, Spring Hill gave up rushing yards in chunks in a 28-16 loss to Summit last week. So a little bit of an uphill battle looks like for Spring Hill in this one. The Raiders dropped this ball game last year at their place against Mount Pleasant, but should be an interesting matchup between the 2A Tigers and the 5A Raiders in that one. We'll be keeping an eye on it, obviously. Also, in Murray County, Columbia Central has its home opener this weekend. The 0-1 Lions, after falling over at Marshall County late 25-22 in week 1, come back home taking on Dixon County. The Cougars also coming in 0-1, having lost a big rivalry game over to Creekwood over there in big county rivalry there. So, Columbia Central showed a lot in getting back in that ball game over at Lewisburg against Marshall County, and maybe built up a little momentum behind their sophomore quarterback, Daniel Brooker. So we'll see how they look this week against Dixon County. Independence goes up to Page. The Patriots got the thing started last week with a 28-0 win over Giles County. Independence, meanwhile, fell to Oakland at home, 35-0. Independence starting another sophomore quarterback, Matthew Horner. Hopefully he's going to do some growing up from last week to this week, as he threw a couple of picks in that Oakland loss. Got to take care of the ball a little bit better, but Page is going to be a big challenge for Independence, especially on the road. Continuing through the Main Street Murray schedule for week 2, we've got Summit going up the road to Centennial. The Spartans, again, with that win over Spring Hill to get the season started. Centennial dropped a tough overtime loss to Franklin, their big rival up there. So saw Centennial a couple of weeks ago, again, in that Murray County Jamboree against Spring Hill. They've got some explosiveness on the perimeter, and could be a little bit of a challenge for Summit to try to keep up with them on the outside, but also could be a little bit of a challenge for Centennial defensively to slow down Summit's three-headed run game led by quarterback Mason McElhaney. So they rolled up, again, 351 yards on Spring Hill, and if they can do that again this week, they may be in pretty good shape on the road against Centennial. Finally, Columbia Academy with their home opener coming off a big win over at Middle Tennessee Christian last week. They've got the feet of Webb Bell Buckle coming into town, and Columbia Academy led by Main Street Murray, TOA of Columbia, player of the week, Monte Baldwin, who went for 227 yards and a pair of touchdowns in that 42-20 win over at Middle Tennessee Christian. But also look out for the quarterback, Stephen Neves, who threw for 4 touchdowns in that win as well. If they can stay balanced like that offensively, Columbia Academy's in store for a nice little season here. So that's what we've got down here in Murray County for week 2. Be sure and check out our post-game segment next week. I'm Maurice Patton, sports editor at Main Street Murray. We'll see y'all.
Thanks for that report. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, more from around Middle Tennessee on the Main Street Preps High School Football Preview Show presented by the Tennessee Highway Safety Office.
He shoots, and he scores!
We stay in southern Middle Tennessee with Wade Neely. He's going to tell you a little bit about Giles County and what's going on there.
What's up, folks? Wade Neely here, sports editor at the Pulaski Citizen and contributor over at the Lawrence County Advocate. Time for an update on week 2. All of our teams are in action this week, back on the gridiron after strong performances in week 1. We will start over in Lawrence County, where there is a big rivalry matchup on the docket this week as Loretto makes the trip up to Lawrence County as the 1-0 Mustangs take on the 0-1 Wildcats. It is going to be a big-time showdown in the heart of Lawrence County as Loretto defeats the Wildcats last year in their meeting, and also Summertown, who we'll get to in just a second, defeated Lawrence County to come in to their week 1 contest just a couple of nights ago. All that being said, however, don't sleep on Lawrence County. The Wildcats are very well coached, and Coach Marston will have his bunch ready for what figures to be a fun rivalry matchup between the two teams in the southern portion of Lawrence County. I mentioned Summertown flying high, if you will. The Eagles, after a 14-0 win versus their rivals last Friday night, they hit the road to take on Wayne County, who is also reeling as Wayne County fell to Mount Pleasant last Friday. So Summertown is on the road taking on Wayne County. Coach Winfrey has his team feeling good after that 14-0 win versus Law Cow, and it will be a fun matchup, I think, between those two teams coming up on Friday. Now we shift gears over into Giles County, and the Bobcats of GCHS, they are at home for the first time this season. They will take on Hardin County. Giles County jumped up 2 weight classes, from 3A to 5A. They'll jump up just one, but one nonetheless, to 4A this week when they take on the Hardin County Tigers. Last year's matchup was a thriller, 34-28. Hardin County wins it late, but Giles County will be out for a victory coming up Friday at the Brickyard. Richland finally will close this out. They are on the road at Cascade. This is a matchup between 2 0-1 teams. Giles County and Hardin County also both entering that contest at 0-1. But Richland at Cascade, 2 0-1 teams, 2 very prideful teams. And Coach Nick Patterson will have his Raiders ready to rock and roll. They'll be on the road this week, and they're even on the road next week. So Richland with 3 straight on the road to open things up, trying to find their way and trying to get into the win column ahead of a big matchup again on the road next week. Cascade, again, is a very challenging foe, but Richland is certainly capable of piecing it together. Maybe the competition last week, speaking of weight classes, Richland, a single A team, took on a 5A Lincoln County squad last week. They almost beat them in 2023, but they fell 42-14 on the road last week to open their season. So an update from the schools over in Lawrence County and an update on the squads here in Giles County. All of that will get you prepped on the southernmost portion of Main Street Media Land. Wade Neely saying so long. We'll see you next time here from Pulaski.
We'll go now to Casey Patrick, who has a report from both Dixon and Cheatham County.
Hi, how are y'all? My name is Casey Patrick. I'm the sports reporter for the Dixon Post and the Cheatham County Exchange. I'm going to give you a little Week 2 preview in the football action. We're going to start with where I'm going to be Friday night. Cheatham County Central is on the road at Harpeth, a big in-county battle there. Both teams coming in 0-1. The Cubs are coming in with a loss after 27-22 loss to Lawson. Cubs, I think they got all the way down to about the 5-yard line on the last play and just couldn't punch it in. Harpeth lost 41-25 to White House Heritage. Patriots came in. Coach Murray, his son Xavier Murray, quarterback for White House Heritage. They had a pretty good offense. I think they completed like 16 of 18 passes. So, gonna see if Harpeth can shore up the defense a little bit. Gonna see if Cheatham can try to build on what looks like a pretty good Week 1 performance. Just come up a little bit short on the road at Lawson. Now, Lawson this week is going to host Sycamore, the other Cheatham County team. Sycamore's coming in with a 0-1 loss after a 41-6 loss to Kirkwood. Lawson, of course, 1-0 with their win against Cheatham. And then moving over to the Dixon County side of things, Creekwood will be at home. They're hosting Lewis County. The Redhawks are 1-0 after a 28-14 win over Dixon County. Lewis County's coming in 1-0. A big 64-6 win over Community. Community's not very good at all. But that's going to be an interesting game to see if maybe, let's see if Creekwood's legit or how good is Lewis County. And then to end it all, we've got Dixon County at Columbia Central. Columbia Central's 0-1 after a loss to Marshall County, 25-22 last week. Going to see if the Cougars can get in the win column. Y'all have a wonderful evening, and let's get ready for Week 2 football.
And that's going to do it for this edition of the Main Street Preps High School Football Preview Show. Again, we are presented by the Tennessee Highway Safety Office. Fans, don't let fans drive drunk. We'll see you right after the games for the Main Street Preps post-game show and recaps. Once again, I'm Chris Yao on Main Street Media TV. Have a great day.
This is the Main Street Preps High School Football Preview Show presented by the Tennessee Highway Safety Office. Fans don't let fans drive drunk.